Greetings, Otaku faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all the return of the Discussion of the Week video segment right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, and finally, I'm back to bring you all the latest in this week's Discussion of the Week. Now, this Discussion of the Week video will actually be a little bit different than the ones I've done in the past. For those of you all who are new to this video segment, Discussion of the Week is a viewer-generated segment, meaning that you, the viewers, leave suggestions for future topics. Usually these suggestions contain multiple questions that I tackle one by one in the video, and of course its most popular topic is the one that I do, meaning that you thumb up, you vote for the topic you'd like to see me discuss in the next video. But seeing as how this is the first Discussion of the Week in, man, I think well over a year, and also because this sort of was a topic I wanted to discuss. This was something I felt needed to be tackled. Usually I won't do a Discussion of the Week based off of recent news or anything like that unless, of course, a viewer suggests it. But I ran across a couple of news articles last week where I'm like, you know what? I feel like I have to go ahead and put in my 2 cents on that. So, alright, so jumping into the topic. So last week, Disney released the teaser trailer for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Now, even now, as I'm recording this video, I still haven't checked out the trailer yet. I'm not really too big in a hurry to go and check that out. I'm pretty sure the film will be fine. I'm pretty sure the film will be good. And believe it or not, it wasn't until last week that I finally saw Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I know, right? I went all these months without seeing Star Wars Episode 7. Yeah, but when the Blu-ray dropped last week, I went ahead, scooped it up, finally sat down and watched it, and I thought it was a pretty cool movie. But, so the timing of all of this is real funny. So the day after the teaser trailer for Rogue One drops, I start running across articles saying that there has been this outcry amongst fans on the internet because Rogue One is another Star Wars film that focuses on a female protagonist. Now, it is funny because just seeing Episode 7, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Rey is the main focus of Episode 7. Regardless of any article, when you start looking at that film and you start breaking it down from a narrative perspective, she is the character through which the main actions of the story progress. That is the textbook definition of a protagonist. So yes, she is, for all intent and purpose, the main character of Episode 7. So now apparently, Rogue One, Felicity Jones's character, is going to be the main focus of that film. That's the impression we're getting from the teaser trailer. And so now I'm reading all these articles like, oh, it's this huge outcry over it. Now you would think, why would this be worth discussing? Why is this even worth talking about? Because let's face it, pretty much this is nothing more than the same minority, because it is a minority. I don't give a damn what the media says, how many Twitter posts, how many retweets, how many Facebook posts. No, this is still the collective voice, right, of a small minority, not only in the Star Wars fandom, not only in geekdom in general, but in the audience of these films. Okay, remember, this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Clearly, these people are not making up the majority of that multi-billion dollars. So, this could very easily just be written off as, oh, it's more, misogynistic fanboys outcrying over this, just like they did with, just like they do with all of the against the cosplayers. Apparently that was a thing a couple of years ago, like, oh, fans were outraged at cosplayers for showing up at conventions and this, that, and the other. It's the same thing that, Gamergate was about. Oh, all of these little boys don't want girls playing online with them. So this thing, and also the whole fake geek girl thing that happened a couple of years ago, same thing. This is coming out of that same wheelhouse, okay? And yes, it would be very easy to just say, okay, how do you sum this whole thing up? Hey, guys, you can just pretty much sum it up by saying, put down the Mountain Dew Code Red, put away the pizza, get out of your mother's basement and grow the fuck up. It would be very easy to respond to this in that way. But here's the thing, though. The reason why it is worth discussing, and while I thought it was a topic worthy of discussion of the week, is because it does deal with this inherent sexism that exists in geek culture. You know, even in 2016, as mainstream as geek culture has become, let's face it, you know, geek properties are the best-selling, best-selling films at the box office right now, okay? Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, even Big Bang Theory, highest rated shows on television right now, all of them have to do with some form of geek culture. We're getting more comic book television shows than ever before. They're dominating the Netflix landscape. Okay, now apparently it's cool to go ahead and, have a comic book character on your hat or on your t-shirt or, on the license plate of your car and this, that, and the other. So geek culture is bigger now than it's ever been before. It's become mainstream. And the problem with that is, the more mainstream it becomes, the more you sort of start to get this whole, once again, this inherent misogynistic sexism that always existed within geek culture. Now it's starting to spread. Now, I will be one of the first to say I don't think it's as big of an issue as the media likes to pose it as. Once again, I still think this is the collective voice of a very small minority. If nothing else, the dollars speak for themselves. And yes, it's the same thing, like, despite all of the outrage and despite all of the outcry, none of these people are going to not go and see this film. They're still going to go see the film. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Why? Because as a consumer of any type of media product, the only way effectively do you make your voice be heard is with your dollar. If you still spend money on the thing that you're outcrying about, guess what? It doesn't matter. Your voice is non and void. Why? Because you still funded it. You still supported it. You still paid for it. Okay? That's why I have always been a huge supporter of, if you have a problem with something, if you have a problem with a media property, if you don't like it, don't support it. Period. Easy. Don't support it. Do not support it with your money. Do not support it with your attention. Don't support it. So it is unfortunate and it is sad because no matter how mainstream geek culture gets, we still have that minority that sort of, that's shameful in the eyes of other geeks. I myself consider myself a geek. Hell, my channel name, otaku, the Japanese word for fan, which within the Japanese connotation has the geek connotation to it. So yes, these are pretty much, these are pretty much the black sheep of the geekdom. These are the black sheep of the fan base. There's that old saying that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. The empty wagon makes the most noise. And this is no different. Like I said, Gamergate, cosplayers, fake geek girls, this is no different from those other things. Now, what I find funny about that, and what I really want to spend more time in this video discussing, is actually all of the positives, because that's the thing. I have not ran across an article yet that really highlighted the positives about this. Now, what am I talking about? Am I talking about the positives of the outcry? No. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's superfluous. It won't matter because they're still going to pay to see the movie. And then there are some articles that have even argued, oh, Disney has decided to take this third wave feministic agenda and this, that, and the other, which there could be some truth to that, but even that, I don't think is the point. I think the main thing to focus on, what the real positive of this is, let's face it, we are finally getting female heroines in Star Wars. And here's the thing, we're giving them the spotlight because, let's be real, all of my Star Wars fans, those of you all who have not only seen the films, but have seen the animated series, those of you all who have seen Clone Wars, who are currently watching Star Wars Rebels, and those of you all who have read the books that illustrate the extended universe, you all know Star Wars has several female heroines in its canon, but guess what? They're not mainstream. They're not given the spotlight. They're not brought to the center stage. Now we are doing that. Because now we are getting these major film productions that are multi-billion-dollar successes in the box office. And guess what? The ladies are running the show. They're driving the vehicle. Why is this so important? Well, number one, with the exception of a few sci-fi properties, we really don't have too many science fiction female heroines. Like I said, there's only a handful of major ones. Well, by and large, female characters have pretty much still, in 2016, been getting the shaft. Now you have arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sci-fi property that has decided to make it a point to bring female characters to center stage. I don't see any downside to this. I really don't. Especially since, let's face it, when it comes to the movie business, and especially when it comes to what's been happening recently, okay, we've had a lot of female protagonist-driven properties that have paid off dividends at the box office. At the top of the list, Hunger Games, okay? Hunger Games, that is, I mean, granted, it is within the teen apocalyptic dystopia sort of genre, but it's still set in somewhat of it's still a science fiction story. Number one, it is a sci-fi story, okay? And that has a female lead, and it's been a major multi-billion-dollar property. Hell, the Divergent series, which once again, the teen dystopia genre, right, based off of a book series, but it has a female lead and it's a multi-million-dollar property. So this is sort of the new trend we are getting. For Star Wars to sort of go into that direction, I really don't see how that's a problem. It sure shit ain't a problem for them. It sure isn't a problem for them. Now here's the thing. I have read some comments on some of these articles. People have made the argument about, oh, well, you know, Disney, they're just doing what they should have done all along because the first 6 films didn't have, you know, they didn't really develop their female characters and this, that, and the other. And to some degree, I do agree with that. But I will actually take the stance of, in the first 6 films, as much as it would have been appreciated, I don't think having the lead have been a female character, I don't think it was necessarily needed. Let's be honest about this. Episodes 4, 5, and 6, that's Luke's story. Luke is the center focus of those 3 films. And then in episodes 1, 2, and 3, Anakin is the center of those 3 films. You know, within the first 6, we were dealing with the father-son story. Now we have finally gotten into a place where we are making new material for this franchise. So it's fair game. Luke's story has ended, or at least for his youth story, it has ended. Anakin's story has ended. So now we have the perfect opportunity to go ahead to branch out into some new territory and to explore some new characters. If those characters just so happen to be female, why is that an issue? Why is that a problem? Also, consider this too. Let's face it, guys, as much as we hate to admit it, like I said, geekdom is becoming more mainstream, okay? That means more people are getting into it every day than they ever have before. Guess what? Women still outnumber us on this earth. There are still more of them than they are of us. If the numbers have anything, yes, we're talking, you know, geekdom does contain properties. It is still very much male-oriented, male-generated, because we are still the majority in that group. But guess what? That's starting to change. More and more women are getting invested in this material day after day after day. So guess what, guys? You got to change with the times. You have to. I cannot for the life of me figure out what red-blooded heterosexual male would have a problem with women being invested in the geeky stuff that he's invested in. I don't know who would have a fucking problem with that. Some of them do. Okay, that's their cross to bear. So have it. Okay. But given the fact that more and more women are getting invested in this material, why wouldn't a property like Star Wars want to create material in which they can get more invested in and that they can support? Why? Because at the end of the day, they got to make money. And guess what? As I just mentioned, there are more women, which means more consumers, which means more dollars, which means bigger profit. Say what you will. Guys, say what you will. There's a reason why Twilight was so successful, regardless of how atrocious that property is. There's a reason why romance comedies is still one of the highest grossing genres of film, despite the fact how awful most of those films are. Guess what? Women go to see it. They go to pay their money. It becomes profitable. They keep making more of it because the business is making money. So long as that continues to be the case, guess what? This is going to keep happening. That doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. Here's the thing. If these Star Wars films were worse, if the property in and of themselves had begun to deteriorate because Disney went out of their way to sort of cater it to women, and then the whole thing just sort of fell apart, which does seem to be the case with a lot of female-oriented shows on television. I've seen many of shows kind of fall by the wayside because, you know, they were trying to cater up to that female audience, and usually when this happens, they start putting in a bunch of bullshit that they think women like. They don't like it, but because other properties have some of that same bullshit and those are successful, they think, oh, throw in a love triangle, they'll love it. Throw in several love interests, they'll love it. Make it a romantic comedy, they'll love it. Newsflash, that is not the case for every property that's on television. Some shows have decided to go ahead and take that route, and of course they end up getting canceled because they deteriorate this, and the other. That hasn't happened to Star Wars yet. Okay, that hasn't happened at all. And I haven't seen it happen with any Star Wars property that decided to go in that direction. A lot of people forget, Clone Wars had a main female character, Ahsoka. And she wasn't just a supporting character, she wasn't just Anakin's sidekick like we all thought she would be when Clone Wars was first introduced. No, if you've watched further into the series, seasons 3, 4, and 5, she got her own independent story arcs completely separate from Anakin and Obi-Wan. And guess what? That was one of Cartoon Network's highest rated programs when it was on the air. Star Wars Rebels does a similar thing. I just got done a couple of weeks ago seeing there's a whole story arc where Ahsoka guest stars on the show. And guess what? That's one of Disney XD's highest rated shows right now. So So once again, like I said, the rabid fanboys that have a huge problem with this, it's not Star Wars. It's not Disney. It's not any one of the characters in which they're bitching about. These guys have underlining, inherent, probably inbred, misogynistic sexism issues that they just gonna have to work out on their own accord. Because guess what? At the end of the day, Force Awakens, multi-billion-dollar. Rogue One, chances are multi-billion-dollar. So long as Disney keeps saying that, hey, the moves we're making are making us profit, you're going to continue to see it. And guess what? Either you roll with the times or you become a fossil of the past. I'm in support of it. I think it's a good move. I think it's an interesting move. And I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen so long as they continue down this course in the future. So that pretty much wraps up my discussion of the week video segment. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. In the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this topic is. And please, as I mentioned before, make sure that you leave suggestions, leave topics for next week's video, and thumb up the one you want to see me discuss in next week's video. If you like this video, please feel free, thumb up this video, share it with other fans, people you think will get a kick out of this video, and if you have yet to do so, subscribe to the OAW YouTube channel. Annotation will be above head. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.